And we are live here on Let's Talk on Parent Alienation and Family Domestic Violence. Welcome, alienated parents, grandparents, alienated children, family, friends worldwide. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Andy, just turn down your mic a little bit. I
Yeah,
like
I'll mute it.
Yeah, I'd like to thank everyone that is here to help support this great podcast on parent alienation because we are struggling as alienated moms, dads, grandparents, aunts, uncles worldwide, and it's not just an isolated incident. Today, I have a special guest, Tina Marie Brantley from South Carolina. And also, we have Andy Martens from the Andy Martens Show from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. He is pretty close to me. I'm from Hamilton, Ontario, in Canada, and it is not just known in one specific area. Parent alienation is going rampant, and people are literally losing their minds, their homes, their lives, their families, all due to this. So I want to welcome Tina and Andy Martens. And if anybody out there has any questions, please comment in the comment box and we will answer. So I'm going to go to Andy first so Andy can help us understand where he's coming from in the alienation world, because people always ask, Andy hasn't been alienated. What does he know? Well, you know what? You don't know until you know. And Andy knows what he's talking about. And he's gone through the same situation, divorce. Divorce is the biggest issue in our alienation world today. Welcome, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. We're on the Let's Talk portion, and of course, we do Let's Talk Real Talk every Sunday, or most Sundays at 8 o'clock, and it's great to have Tina here as well. Yeah, divorce is something that when I think back to it, it hit me like a ton of bricks. We lived in Scarborough, and then we moved to Don Mills, and then boom. Next thing you know, I'm 13 years old, and I told I get sent to boarding school in Aurora, Ontario, which is north of Toronto. And like, what does a 13-year-old know with, that kind of stuff? My sister gets to live with my mother, continue on, and I'm sent to boarding school for 2 years. It's not the way you want to start out your childhood, because the divorce affects you is one thing, but all of this emotional turmoil that happened with my parents affected my high school as well, because your home life is thrown up topsy turvy, and sort of so on and so forth. In Toronto at De La Salle College, they told me, Andy, forget about university. Don't bother doing anything. So I had to take my correspondence course, grade 13 at the time. Hey, Mary, you and I are getting up there, grade 13. Do you remember that? In the
Well,
1970s?
I had to do grade 12 twice because they cut grade 13 out that last year. So
Right.
we had to go back to high school to get that extra few credits that we needed.
So
Yeah.
the realistic thing is this: as a child, you have no input into what happens. You have no say in what situations you're born into. But I can remember as a child thinking, when I'm in control sometime, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it good. And I've done that, but the alienation side of it is with my wife's sister, but we'll get into that later. Tina's our guest star here today, and Tina, let me start off while Mary's sharing to the network. I've taken a look at your Facebook pretty in depthly, and some good questions to ask you. Pre-night 2019, things look pretty good, pretty happy from what I can see. What went wrong in your relationship, Tina? You said you argued a lot. How did that happen out of the blue?
It didn't happen immediately.
Huh?
And you
Oh, your audio's kind of choppy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, now we're good. So why don't you run us through? You seem like you had a happy life. I could see your Facebook back to 2016. What happened? What went wrong?
Um, I hit it very well. I don't know if it was because, and I hate to regress back to my childhood, but going through therapy, you learn that a lot of your ways are from your childhood unknowingly. I think because I was from an alcoholic family,
Oh, okay.
that I was conditioned to put.
Andy, turn your mic down. Sorry, Tina.
Oh, yeah, maybe that's causing that. Oh,
I think I was conditioned to certain things. Um, Putting up with certain things, tolerating certain things, and then seeing the lifestyle of my mom and dad growing up and how my mom endured so much with my father. I think in my mind, not knowing that you were just supposed to put up with certain things. And Facebook and YouTube and friends started making me aware of what I was living in and were trying to tell me that it wasn't normal. And of course, I didn't want to listen to my friends because, you know, they don't know what they're talking about. But then when I started going on YouTube and listening to Dr. Romney and listening to Lisa, I can't remember her name right now.
Romano.
Lisa
Yeah,
Romano.
starting to listen to Lisa Romano and Trenton Shelton, I started thinking, wow, my friends are telling me the truth. So not and I hate to say this, but when you don't know, you don't know. So my eyes started opening up. And when my eyes started opening up to the 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 way I was treated by, and I hate to throw my ex-husband's family under the bus, but I was never accepted. And that's another thing that I'm going to therapy for too, because I was adopted. So I've got a lot of baggage in myself, and then living in an environment growing up and then marrying into an environment that was similar to what I was growing up in, not knowing that that wasn't a normal situation. So when you're in dysfunction, it seems like you're attracted to dysfunction and you stay in dysfunction. And when I started watching these videos and talking more to my friends were starting to be more open with me. Um, just the light bulb started coming. And then it was like Lisa says, it's like your brain becomes mashed potatoes because all this information starts hitting you, and you just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just so much happened in like a span of time. And then one of my girlfriends reminded me, about 15 to 20 years ago, I went to her and told her I was leaving. I was going to Florida. I was leaving everything behind. And I still to this day cannot remember what triggered me to go to her and open up to her about it. And I still to this day cannot remember what made me go to her. But she talked me out of leaving. So
Right.
this and ongoing, I mean, this wasn't just now. This has been going on a long time. But I just,
So, Tina, you were in denial kind of thing that there were any problems happening in your relationship?
no, I knew there was thought that you are supposed to endure problems. When you take the vow to be married, it's for, and I took it seriously, for sickness and health, for better, for good, for, richer or poor. I took those to heart. But like I said, when I started watching all this YouTube stuff and started opening up to some of my friends, um, it I realized this isn't what somebody is supposed to endure.
Right, and social media has done that in the last 20 years.
Right.
You kind of thing. That's true, but marriage is not a rose garden all the time, and I keep telling these people that say, "Well, Andy, you've had it easy." Well, no, in fact, I haven't. Yes, I've been with the same woman for 39 years, but it hasn't been easy. We've had issues and this, but it takes two people to make it work. There's no I in team, and from the sounds of it, Tina, you didn't have that in your relationship.
Right. I would try to talk to my spouse, and he would always seem to twist it where it was everything was always my fault, or he wouldn't talk to me. He'd go in the room, he'd shut the door. I was the little wife that would run behind him and go in there and try to talk to him, and then he'd roll over and wouldn't listen, or would just shut me out. Just there was no communication even with raising the kids. There was a lot of times that I probably did things that he didn't like. He did things that I didn't like. I would always try to discuss what he was doing I didn't like to him, and oh, that would just blow up, and I would go into tears, and I would come in the house, and I would see my children enduring things that I just didn't think was acceptable. But I tried to have a voice for them, and it didn't work.
Well, Mary Kovacs, we've seen this before. Mary and I have been talking about various issues and various things. You can tell narcissists a mile away. They create havoc, and then, oh, it's not my fault. They don't say anything. We saw a video there where the daughter was reaming out the father. Oh, he's silent. Mary Kovacs, you've seen that a lot over the last 30, 40 years, haven't you?
Oh, I sure have. And how we know that these alienators are truly lying. They gather anyone, doesn't matter who off the street, to side with them, to make them all believe that they saw the other person assault the alienator or the abusive person that's, hiding our children. And, it's just so sad that these people don't see what they're doing, that everybody else can see it, only they can't. It's like that they believe in their own lies, but the truth of it all is, do the people believe in them? And these alienators are so good in the court system. They lie to their lawyers, to the therapists, to doctors, anything to get the sympathy. They have no empathy, so they seek sympathy. Sympathy for the devil. There's no empathy for the devil, or else he wouldn't be a devil, right? So this is how these alienators suck everybody in to make the innocent look guilty.
Well, I
So
won't I won't say I was innocent, because my biggest problem was I was very reactive, and going through therapy and doing a lot of online courses. I have found out that I was very reactive, and that is exactly, there are people out there in this world that prey on that, and
right.
I was unaware of how defensive and how reactive I was. Unfortunately, people saw the reaction of me and never saw what led up to that reaction. So a lot of people in their heads think, oh, she's crazy. Oh, she's such a B word. Well, I wasn't crazy, and I will stand. Yeah, I am the B word, because I do stand up for what I believe in. And I was very reactive, whereas I should have not been reactive. I should have just been silent. But I'm not a silent person. I'm a very open person. I'm a very talkative person. And I think a lot of people don't like that either.
Right. And I was the opposite. I was the silent one because I had my home to protect, my children to protect. I had myself to protect because I know what my abuser would do.
Right.
because I seen him do it to his own people. Like when he was a teacher. So if he didn't like the student, he made sure that student failed all his exams. Now we're talking careers for the military young soldiers. So anyone that came in contact with him and crossed him, they were sure to come and tell me the story. And then when I would ask my ex-husband at the time, when he was my husband, why he would do that to a young soldier, wouldn't you want to push them further ahead in life? And he just said, anyone that pisses me off, they will get what they deserve. And in his eyes, he must have heard that because he's been an alienated child for 64 years now, but at that time he'd be alienated for 25, 30 years, during his military career. I was married to him for 27 years. So that whole time we were married, that was 46 years. He was alienated, never to know what it was like to have that father figure teach him right from wrong. So he would be the stern, I'm the man, I'm the king, I'm Superman, I'm Hitler. Like these are the words he literally described himself as. And those kind of words kind of put the fear in your head, because if he's Superman, he's going to beat you up. If he's Hitler, he's going to kill you. And this is how he behaved. He played the parts. He played those parts really well. Even wore T-shirts about Hitler, burning down the Jews and all these things. I had to take those T-shirts and burn them. He had a career in the military. So he didn't care what he wore, how he presented himself, but yet he was still the king of the castle. And there's no way of knocking these people down. They will literally tell you, if you say you're not Superman, they'll argue and say, yes, I am. Watch me fly. Sometimes you wish they would jump over that hill and then show themselves that, no, they're not indispensable. They're just hurting people like they don't care. So when they alienate us from our children, they don't care about the children. They just care about how they're going to hurt us. We lost Andy, so I'm getting him back into the there he is.
Hey, sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
But yeah, like I was saying, they don't care what they do to the children as long as they punish us. And if we leave them,
that's what he always told me when I was with him. If I ever left him, he would make sure he would take the kids from me. Yep. And that always stayed in my head. And, the last 7 to 8 years of our marriage, I slept out in the living room. And my children saw that. Did I tell my children what my fear was? No, I did not. No. But I would worry that in the middle of the night, he would take my children and he would leave with them. And I never involved my kids with everything that was going on. They saw bits and pieces because I couldn't hide everything from them. But they saw us arguing. They saw us fighting. They saw us feuding over bills, over finances, over his family. I mean, my ex-husband's family was a big issue too. And I just couldn't endure it anymore. And sure enough, when he talked them into leaving first, and then he left. So he did exactly what he said that I was fearful for the last 7 years of my marriage that was going to happen.
Mine said the exact same thing, but he started right from the very beginning before we had children, before the children came, and he would tell me that if I left him, he would kill me. And when the children came, the excuse was if I left him, he would kill me and I wouldn't know what he did with the children, or that he would kill the children and kill me. And it was just endless. So we are literally forced into staying. And yes, you're right. When people ask, why didn't you leave? Well, that's why. If we left, the children would be gone. And that is exactly what they did. They don't bullshit when they say, if you leave me, I will kill you. If you leave me, I will take the children, because millions of people are going through this. And now that my alienated children after 18 years are adults, I wrote to my child the youngest one, she's 32 years old. Well, didn't she repeat, I will never let you see your grandchildren. And when I do have children, she says, I will tell them how extremely violent and abusive you were. She wrote that to me on my Parent Alienation as Child Abuse page. Now, this is so I use that page openly for my children. They say, why don't you block your kids? I'm not blocking my kids. I've been fighting for them for 18 years. Why would I block them? And also, I am waiting for my grandchildren. And if my grandchildren come, they shouldn't be punishing my grandchildren. They shouldn't be punishing me. I had no contact with them. So the sooner they have the child, we need to have us as grandparents step forward and say, I want a relationship with that child. I need that child to know who that child is. I ran into a situation where a child was accosted by two people, and they claimed to be the father and mother to the child, where I went with a grandmother seeking to get some kind of recognition for that child, to know who that child is. And then these two people get up and say, I'm the mother and father. You are no one. And it's like, what? You're the aunt and uncle. How dare you confuse these children and put them into their heads that you are a mother and father when, you know, you don't even have children. And then to throw in my face, where are your grandchildren? What's that got to do with it? But anyways, this is how these people abuse us for life. And it's endless. So,
Right.
yeah.
And
But
then,
Tina, what are your plans now that you have contact with one of your daughters? You were saying backstage. Do you think, will that reflect on the other children? A domino effect? Are you hoping?
I don't know. I have contact with my other daughter also, but that's still a hit and miss and a very eggshell type of relationship. Um, my youngest daughter, we have been open and honest. I told her, if I say something that she gets upset about, or if I do something that she's not happy about, please just communicate with me. Let me know. If because that's what my children, I hate to keep saying my children because they're God's children. I'm just
Well, they are our children, even
but
though they're God's children. They're in God's children in God's hands, but
right.
they are our children, and they have no right to take our children. So we
Right.
need to make sure we say that.
Okay. Well, I just always have been very open with my kids. We had all five of my children, we were always so close. We talked about everything. We had dinner at the kitchen table at night. We would discuss things. And it's like all of a sudden, boom, no relationship, or an eggshell relationship. So I think maybe my youngest daughter and I are back. We'll never get back to what we were, but I think at least we have a foundation being built now to grow it and to build it again. So as long as we can have open communication, be honest with one another, I think we will do fine. The
Yes.
other four, I can't, I don't know. It's still very rocky.
Sad.
Well, Tina, yeah, a lot. You said a lot there, a lot to talk about. How can a great relationship, and I saw it on your Facebook page, you guys like baseball a lot and all of that in South Carolina. By the way, Tina is from Columbia, South Carolina, which I believe is the capital.
Yes, Columbia.
Yeah. How far are you from Myrtle Beach?
I think it takes about 3.5 hours.
All right, you're further at Spartanburg and all of that. You're a little bit south of all of that. Anyway, what I'm getting at is how can a relationship? I'm not talking about your ex here, with your children, do a 360 in such a short period of time.
Well, I wanted to say I'm not sure, but I think that the circumstances that came to head, my children, I believe, only knew one side of the story. Um, and my ex, I hate to keep talking about him, but I think there are some people that tried to tell a false story of what was going on. And I think that's what, but I don't know what was all happening behind the scenes either before I even awoke to what was going on. They may have.
Right. Oh, I'm willing to bet, and Mary and I have talked about this on the Andy Martin show, or Let's Talk Real Talk. I've planned, and I saw this with my wife's youngest brother. It was planned. They know what they're doing. And then one more question, and then Mary can go from there. Is that I hate to say this, Tina, but I think I'm 95% sure that narcissistic people like Mary's ex and your ex never were in the game. Marriage is an adventure. You have to be in the game. The most important part in a marriage is your spouse and your children. And a narcissistic thing, it's a game from them. They never really love their spouse to begin with, and they look for submissive women that don't know or cannot see what's coming. Do I have that right, Tina?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Come closer, Tina.
I said, yes, sir. I believe you hit that right on the nail. Yeah. Yeah.
It's true, Andy, because they run from conflict. I don't know about many spouses out there, but they would get up and go leave for months at a time, or they would get jobs out of the country so that they would could go have a second life behind the scene. And I noticed with my own that because of his military career, the military took him away for 6 to 12 months. But when he did come home, he found somewhere else to go for 2-3 months in between. Anything to stay away from his family, because he used to state when the children were babies, I hate babies. I don't want to babysit. I had to get babysitters for the children while he was home watching football TV so that these babysitters would put the kids to sleep and stuff. That's how bad it was with my ex, that he wanted nothing to do with the children. And, it's just so sad, because when they turned 16, 15, 17, and 18, he told the judge he was home every single day. Now, if the judge really cared, he would have gone through the history of his military records, knowing that he was gone winter, spring, summer, and fall X. And that would lead sometimes to 6 to 8, 10 months a year for all his military career. And when he did retire with the military, he got a job that took him away for 12 months. And when we called him to come home when there was conflict, he refused. Now, why would you refuse to come home when your teenagers, one's crying suicide only because he told her to do it over the phone one time when he called and said because he wanted the money back from boarding school? You don't do that. Once you enroll a kid into a school and you pay for it, that's it. They better learn and stick out that year. But no, he tried to convince the child that if she did, she would get money back. Now, everything was about money, 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 money. Anything that was good, he told the kids when they were taking music lessons that, oh, you sound terrible, don't play. They were practicing only because it interfered with his TV time. Or, he was trying to sleep and the kids are playing the guitar or the piano or singing. It was just anything the kids did that he didn't, it turned into an issue only because he couldn't do it. Not because he didn't have the chance. He had every chance in the world to improve himself with the family, but he didn't. He made the family, he segregated us from him. So I'd see that in a lot of situations that we deal with daily. People that say, oh, I have to take the kids out of the house. I went here by myself. Well, where's your partner? Why isn't the partner with you? And that's the whole problem. They don't.
In other words, your ex or Tina's ex wasn't in the game. They don't care.
They don't care.
So there's.
I can't always say that because he was in the game when it was convenient or what he
Yes.
liked to do. If it was anything that he liked to do, he was all in it with the kids. But if it wasn't, yeah, it's a different
Yep.
story. If it,
Yeah.
like, the kids wanted to start playing baseball, and uh, so finally, he decided to become a coach, which I'm very proud of him for doing that. I supported everything my ex-husband did, everything. He was the director of a fishing club here, a youth director. I helped him with that, but it was always what he like, the hunting, the fishing, and then baseball. Anything other than that, in my heart, and I could be wrong because there are different opinions, people have different opinions, but I don't feel like he was invested in them if it wasn't anything that was similar to what he liked or he wanted to do.
Hmm.
Whereas uh, myself, I didn't care what they did. I was all in. What I didn't care if they were out there in the yard shooting marbles. I was out there watching them. I didn't care what if it was a video game. I tried to play. I got kind of sick trying to play them because I have motion sickness or something. There's certain games I just can't play. But I would at least sit in there and watch and ask questions. I was always trying to let my children know I'm interested, I'm involved. What are you doing? What is this? Why are you doing? I was the question person. I guess you would say, the helicopter mom. And that was bad too, because I think because I was so much into my kids that it took the, and I don't know if I did it to take it them from them noticing their father wasn't there. I don't know if I overdid it to make up for him not being invested in them, where they didn't notice him not there. So it hurt me to be that helicopter mom. But I didn't have those kind of parents either. And I always said if I ever had children, I was gonna, they're innocent. They weren't asked to be here. So when I started having children, I was all into everything they did. Like I said, probably more an overtop helicopter mom than normal people. But it wasn't for me. It was because I wanted my children to know they were number one. And I know that it's supposed to be God first, your husband, and then your children. And that's my fault. I put my children ahead of my husband.
Well, I tried to put my husband ahead of the children, but it didn't work because he didn't put us ahead of
Exactly.
anything. So I had to protect my children. And yes,
Yep.
you're right. Being a helicopter parent is not all that great because I had to be a mom and a dad to my children who missed their father, but I kept them busy. And
But
yes,
but
that's probably what happened. And that is why they went with the father, because they didn't have a chance to know him. But they didn't have to, be used by the court system to use all those lies and false allegations. They didn't have to be put into situations where they had to lie to have me falsely arrested. They didn't have to be put into situations where they're now claiming child abuse because, because the father did it all.
right. Well,
No, they're projecting all the abuse back onto the alienated parent. And this is what a lot of targeted parents are going through.
yeah. Well, I'm not going to take away from my ex-husband not being a father, because he was a father with them. He
Yeah, but
was.
not everybody has that. So you're
Right.
lucky.
Yeah.
But still, what kind of father takes away a mother?
Yeah. Well,
That's not being a father. And you
right.
know what? I believe that he did that for revenge. And who seeks revenge on us? An abusive person. And they planned it. That's a
Right.
plan, and
That's
no
correct.
different than how I was.
But that again is a different issue. What he's doing with me is a different issue. He was a father to them when it was something that when it was something he was knowledgeable of or he was invested in. So I can't say he was not a father to my children. He was not I'm all the time he was their daddy. He was their father. But the problem is he was not always available. He was always gone. But like I said, me being a helicopter mom, him hunting, fishing, working late, whatever it was he was doing, whether he was really doing it or not doing it, I don't know. And at this point, I don't care. But I was the one that was always here day and night, picking them up from school, taking them to school, taking them to the activities. And he did participate in those activities if it was something he wanted to do.
Yeah,
So
but that big if, Tina, that's a big if. That shouldn't be an if. That should be an automatic.
I know that. But again, he was there for them. So I cannot say my ex-husband was not there for my children, because he was.
Okay,
And
so why is he taking you away from them now?
I can't answer that because I'm not him.
Because he's seeking revenge on you.
Well, I can't ask for him. I can't talk for him. All I can do is talk for myself and see my point, and put the word out for my children of my side of the story. So maybe one day, if they see this, I'm not going to badmouth their father like their father has done to me.
Right. Right.
Well, yeah, I want to jump in here. And the problem is, and I saw this with my father too, and that led to divorce. A man should do his own thing before he gets married, not afterwards when you have a wife and you have kids. Your time is with your spouse and with your children, and you have to formulate activity that you can do all the time and all together. Not that you're in the game halfway and then, oh, I want to do my thing too. No, it doesn't work that way for a successful marriage. You've got to be in the game and do activities as a family. And I think that's where a lot of narcissists and miss the game because they're very selfish.
That's right. And this is how these abusers get away with women protecting them. We can't, not just women, men too, protect their wives when the wives are the abusive ones. We have to know where to draw the line, because the more you allow them to get away by saying, oh, he's the good mom, or he was a good dad. Well, they're not good. If they're abusing you, they're abusing the system. They're using everybody to make you look like the bad person. And this is why the judges are seeing all this and going, okay, I believe you. Yeah, your wife's a drug addict and alcoholic. Meanwhile, that person never drank in their lives. So this is education. And Tina, I'm sorry, but there's no way I could console that, he was a good dad if he takes a mom away. There is no one in this world that can be a good parent if they wipe out the other parent. That's bad for the child. That's child abuse.
I understand that. But like I said, I don't know if my children will see this. So I'm not going to. I understand your point, but I have to look out still.
Well, Tina, I think where Mary's coming from is he was in a good relationship with your children.
Right.
But he didn't work on the relationship with you. And that led to my next question. You didn't sleep in the same bed as him for 8 years. What were you thinking during that time? Were you in denial, or did you think that their relationship would get better? He might change.
Well, I kept holding out hope that he would change. And I would ask him, I would tell him things that I wasn't happy with or whatever. And so I would give him that little leeway of hope, whatever. And then I started opening up more to my friends. And he started taking my phone, thinking I was having affairs. He was always taking my phone, going through my text messages, I guess trying to catch me texting somebody. And finally, he got a hold of my phone, and I told him, I said, don't read my text messages to my girlfriends. Please don't. I said, I said it just like this. I said, you're going to get your ass hurt if you read my text messages. So he did. and he happened to see one of my girlfriends and I's conversation, and he kept throwing it up in my face. Oh, you're just biding time, huh? Oh, you're just biding time. So he was always throwing that up. Oh, you're just biding time, huh? Because I had written one of my girlfriends that I was going to try to endure this until my youngest daughter was 18 years old, because I was so afraid he was going to hurt my kids.
Well, that's not being a good parent then, if you're afraid of him hurting your kids. So.
Not hurting my kids, but leaving with them. Like he did. He ended up doing it anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Of course, he set you up.
Yeah.
He set you up for
without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, and look at you now. You're struggling to get a.
And I'm not defending him. He did not set me up. I set myself up. I went to a guy's house, and that's what he just still to this day throws up. And this guy is like one of my best friends. He was an ex-boyfriend of mine. I'm not going to deny that. But he is like my best friend. His family has always been in my life. My oldest daughter is named after, it's his grandmother, but it's not just his grandmother. It's one of my best friend's mothers, my other friend's grandmother. So, I was friends with this family for a long, long time. So it's not like he didn't know who these people are, but somehow he twisted that into just a bad thing.
He twisted it for his own good.
Oh yeah. And my kids,
but we know that narcissistic people are promiscuous, and he probably cheated on you a zillion times. It was okay to do that.
Right. I've heard through the, just hear from ex-employees, because we had a plumbing business, from ex-employees that he was not doing fishing and hunting trips. Him and some of his family members were off, having little escapades on the weekends. And that was really heartbreaking to hear.
Wow.
But, I can't prove it. So it's okay. He's got to live with that. He's got to live with that.
Right.
Not me. He has to. And you know what? Hey, answer for all his wrongs.
Well, marriage, having children is a teamwork, and narcissistic people do not understand that. It's all about them. They cannot get that I out of team. And it's sad, but we're getting, I think, close to our time, eh, Mary? Tina, I want to go back. You were attracted to this guy. You married your ex. Was there any happy moments? You had 5 kids with the guy. Were there any happy moments in this process?
Oh yeah, there were a lot. There were a lot of happy moments, but I as I've went through counseling, I find out why there was happy moments. It's called trauma bonding. It was a yo-yo effect. It'd be months that we would be on the outs, and and then all of a sudden he would do something really, really nice. And that's where I thought, oh, he's changing. He's getting better. Not being unaware that
he's sucking you in.
Yeah.
He was love bombing you, Tina.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that saying, the liar's punishment is not in the least that he is not believed, but that he cannot believe anyone else. George Bernard Shaw. So, these narcissists only believe what they want to believe.
Oh, yeah. But they're good at it because they get other people to believe what they
That's right.
believe.
Like a cult leader.
Whew.
Yeah. Yeah, they suck everybody in. And, I noticed that on the weekend, where one person drew in a crowd of people to believe that it was me that was the abuser, when all I stood there was just taking a video, and they're punching me. They're literally being videotaped punching me, but yet she sucked in all these people to make them believe that I was the abusive person. And that is so wrong on our part in society, to believe that someone's getting hit, that they're the abuser. Meanwhile, they're backing up, they're running away, but yet the abusive person is running after them, throwing punches and throwing more and more and more. Well, that's what our abusers do when they're taking us to family court. When the judge says, oh, you lied about that, you got caught, well, they throw in another 2 more lies, 3 more lies, 4 more lies, and then they're making the kids make up stuff. Now, this is how these kids get damaged, because later on in life, they are ashamed, they feel guilty, they feel like, they got the wool pulled over their heads because they were told that they had to say this in front of the judge, because the children's lawyers are, the biggest liars of all. They invent things to make the child fear one of the parents.
Right. And that's what my children think. My children started thinking that I was unstable, that I was unstable, that I was crazy, that, oh, look at your mama, look how she's acting. He would say little things like that. And of course, that's planting the seed in their head. Again, not knowing what he did for me to react.
Yes.
But
it's all about the reaction.
In time, I do believe that everything will come to a head.
It falls into place. It does. I mean, it took 18 years for me to get where I am, where I now have 3 different stories on how my relationship ended during the process of courts, trials. It was horrendous being in court for all those years.
Oh, I've even been told by his family members that I gave up all rights to my children for the house. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that he has told these people. And finally, I was like, you know what? It's public record. Pull all my divorce papers. I wish everybody would pull my divorce papers and read all of it. That's where the truth is.
Yeah, well, that's the truth, because I started sharing some of mine from the judge in the excerpts, and one of my children got on to my post saying that I shouldn't be sharing this. Well, you know what? You guys submitted it into a family court, which is public record. Everybody can go see it. Why can't I share it where people don't need to look it up? Here it is.
That's
If
right.
you don't like it, you shouldn't have done it. Why are you lying still? Why are you making up more lies and more lies?
But
it's their lawyers that are dragging them through it for the rest of their lives, because this is not just an isolated incident for them one time in court. They're in there now for the life of their life. My ex-husband, 64 years, he's been in court. Now they're making money off of him. They're making money off my children. I refuse. I'm not taking anybody to court, because you know what? It's just going to make more money for the court system. What we need to do is stay out of the court system, find an advocate, find a family conflict service that'll help you build a case. And it's a lot cheaper, much easier. And if you're going to have children, if you don't have any right now, I firmly, I can't state it anymore. Get a prenup so that no one takes the children. It's 50-50. Unless you can prove there is abuse in the home, no one can take your children.
But 50-50 does not work if you do, and I found this out the hard way. 50-50 does not work unless you have a modification thing, a schedule in your divorce paperwork. That is something that was deliberately left out of ours.
Okay, well, Tina, I mean 50-50 mentality, that one parent is no different than the other. You're not going to get 50-50. Most parents are working out of town. Parents are working shifts. Parents are doing this.
Right.
There's separate families. Parents have 2 families. I'm talking mentality. You cannot walk into the court and say, I want my child's sex changed, while the other parent disagrees. That's not 50-50. I'm talking 50-50 on schooling, medical, dental, anything.
Right.
But, if you can't share the child one week, you need to go somewhere. You ask the other parent, do you want to take them for an extra week, and we could switch off for another week? This is co-parenting. These kids are kids. They're not an object.
Right. And like I said, I did have 50-50, but because I didn't have the schedule or whatever, or they deliberately didn't put the schedule in it, the courts allowed, since my children were of age, that they could make the choice. And because he was all, or somebody was already in their head, that's the choice they made. But
Well,
yeah,
when they're 18, you can't do anything. But when they're under 18, yes, every 2 weeks somebody gets the children. That's it. Or go weekly. There's no rhyme or reason why that should not work.
right. What because of, and the unfortunate thing, when we were going through this, it was COVID. So the courts were shut down. So yeah, perfect time.
Yeah. That ruined everybody. That was perfect time to start false allegations, the kid's sick. How do you know the kid's sick? Because you're not getting medical records.
Oh yeah.
They were pulling the wool over a lot of parents during that time. And then they started doing the Zoom trials, and then the Zoom trials failed, and it was just a mess. But now we are in 2023. We are back to normal. Courts are open. There should be no reason why judges don't hear us. We are speaking the truth. Our children are damaged, and it's all because of the family court system. So I'm going to end this in about 5 minutes. Andy, do you have anything you'd like to say to Tina?
Yeah, Tina's a great guest. I got one other question here, and well, a comment and a question. The comment on what you were talking about with narcissists, unless you have an amicable divorce, chances are you're not going to get the 50-50. Most narcissistic people do not want an amicable divorce. It's all high conflict. Yeah. And if it's high conflict, like Mary said, it takes two. You've got to be in the same team. Take that I out of team. You're not going to get it. But what I wanted to ask Tina, in the shows we've done, and by no means I'm not an expert, but most of the time, the relationship, and I believe your ex was a narcissist, or had plans when you first met him. Those narcissists don't want in a relationship for the other person to get to know them. They rush the process. Was that the case? It's not the case in all cases, but I'm 95% sure the amount of shows we've done, you're talking 6 months or no more than a year in a relationship before you get married.
Not in my case. We dated 5 years before we got married.
Wow, that's the exception. Good for you. But my point is that they don't want you to get to know them because you'll take off. And if you find out what it's all about, you'll take off and you won't marry them. Right. Did you not get enough information as to how this might sour in that 5-year period?
Yes, I did. But of course, the person that I am, I'm very forgiving. I'm very understanding. And I know, and this is bad, I knew that the life that he had led prior to me, just like the life that I had led prior to him. We were both from very dysfunctional families, whether his family wants to admit it or not. He was from a dysfunctional family. He was raised by his great grandmother. Okay. I loved her to pieces, but he was raised by his great grandmother, not his mother, not his grandmother, his great grandmother. I admire that lady. I love that lady. I will never say a bad word about her, but that was not healthy, but I listened to the stories. And so of course my heart felt sorry for him. He didn't have a relationship with his biological father. Later on in life, when we got together, he started having one. So he is from a generation of alienation. He lived it. And I just never figured I would be a participant in the same thing. I just thought that since he lived it, he wouldn't be like that. I was wrong, I was wrong.
I lived it too, but I'm not like that because I knew that this isn't a formula for success. Tina mentioned my mother's family was dysfunctional. My uncle was just a total narcissist and beat his wife, beat his children. And the Fool family. Oh, there's nothing to see here. No, I saw that growing up and I thought, hey, this isn't, but Mary, Tina mentions a really big deal to wrap it up here. Forgiving, and that's what narcissists play on. Oh, I just cheated on a woman. Oh, don't do it again. I forgive you. And you've been forgiving too, and that is what they play on.
Yes, and that's so true because I forgave my ex so many times. Forgave his family for insulting me over and over, and I know where all that came from because of my ex being the same way, insulting. I forgave him knowing that he only learned it from his family because he grew up with a stepfather who was an alcoholic and abused him after he was 14 years old. He never had a father since, but his real father was murdered because he was so abusive. When I found him at 25, we were both 25 years of age. We were heading out to California to visit him, but 2 months prior, they killed him. They ran over him with his own crane. So
Goodness.
the bloodline from a psychopath, I believe, is brought down into the next generation. It's a mental disorder. I'm not a therapist. I'm not anything, but I saw it. I saw it in my own ex-husband, how psychotic he could be, especially when you talk bad about his mom, because he always said his dad was so abusive. Well, why are you abusive? If, did you have to pick up the same trait? So this is how, when we all have dysfunctional moments in our lives as growing up, nobody is perfect.
Right.
And, but there are some of us that hide the abuse from the children and we take the abuse in private, but the kids still have ears because they could hear through the walls and they may not see it, but they do hear it. And when they hear their names being thrown into the equation, they feel left out. They want to be part of the abuse because they find it's easier to deal with abuse than it is to love a parent so that they don't get abused by the other parent. That's hard for the kids because I saw that one parent would say, oh, you're a traitor because you went with your dad, or your dad would say you're a traitor because you went with your mom. We don't need to hear that. We don't need to teach our children that. We need to say, oh, that's nice that you get to go with your dad, and that's nice that you get to go with your mom. That way the children know they're doing something right, and they don't have to fear that parent later on in life.
Right. But when they're raised in dysfunction, they don't know that is right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they're raised in a proper way, and this is where parenting plans are very important for parents to go to a class before they have children. These classes need to be taught what parent alienation is all about. It needs to be structured and say, this could happen to you.
Right.
Right? Not that it's going to happen to you, but this could happen to you if you don't agree upon each other's parenting. And if you don't agree, you shouldn't have children.
Right.
So
that's why one more thing I wanted to say. Genetically, yes, narcissism, control, all of this could be genetic through families. I know it was. In my mother's family, my great-grandmother was just totally, and my sister and my mother picked that up, and my uncle. But you have a choice. You have a choice to say, no, I'm not going there. And luckily, I was more genetically towards my grandmother, who was the only sane person in that family. So what I'm trying to say, genetically, you have a choice. You don't follow the narcissistic, nasty attitude that I saw, and you don't follow alcoholism. Alcoholism can be genetic as well. You know it's running in your family. You have a choice to say no. You don't want that same nonsense.
That's right.
That's where I'm blessed. It's a weird blessing, but it's not a weird blessing. But anyway, that's where I'm blessed because I was adopted. So I didn't genetically get the traits from my mom and dad. So I think that's what made me a little different in my situation, is that I was making sure I was not going to be an alcoholic. I was going to make sure I wasn't moving every 3 to 6 months. I was going to make sure that my children had stability, had a very involved parent, because I didn't have that. So like I said, that's back to the helicopter parent that I became unknowingly, um, because I wanted to be totally involved with my kids. So, you know,
Right. Tina, last words to parents out there. What would you like them to know?
get educated and keep loving your heart. Just keep loving your heart and keep praying and get help. Get a bunch of support groups, get involved. And that's another reason why I'm so involved with my community, because it helps me. It helps me to overcome all this.
Good for you. Andy, your last words?
Well, Tina's always a great guest. There's so much more to talk about. We'll have her on again with trust issues, how you move forward. And, it's such a shame that people think, oh, they're great to get this into this. It's not. And anybody that thinks it's great, they just move on, and that's that. So thanks,
Great.
Tina. You're always a delightful guest, and
Thank you.
there's always a lot to talk about with this subject.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Andy.
Thank
Parents,
you, Mary.
you're welcome. Alienated parents, grandparents, children, never give up on your family. That's most important part of your life, is to know who you are, your genetics, the way you're upbringing. Your future children are going to have your parents' DNA. They're going to be part of your life for the rest of your life. So make sure these children are growing up in the right way. And next Tuesday, we have Patrina Biles O'Leary Veris, and she is a certified personal support worker and private care worker from Algonquin College. Will be our next guest on Tuesday, May 24th. And then on May 28th, we have Dean Tong, who will be a great guest. Oh, wait a minute. I think I made a mistake. My apologies. It's not going to be next Tuesday. Next Tuesday we have another guest, but right now we are not scheduled 100%. But anyway, sorry about that one. But yes, so thank you, and join us.
So we have let's talk real talk. On Sunday, we have no guest.
No, but I believe it will be on the Wednesday, but I'm just going to confirm that. And we also have Lori Fitzpatrick on the 25th of May, which is the following Thursday. And then Dean Tong on the 28th. So we do have guests next week, but I just have to confirm and make sure.
All right. Thanks, Mary.
So thank you.
Thanks, Tina.
And we are going to end this podcast in 2. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.